All right. Hey, folks, it's Faz here from Faz Lifts. Today, I'm going to be giving you my critique of the Texas method and talking about where it came from. So let's get into it. First of all, thanks for making it onto my channel. If you have any comments about this video, let me know what you think about the Texas method. Pop them down below in the description. If you'd like to work with me on your physique and strength goals, there is a link in the description. All right, let's crack on. So first of all, a summary of the program. The Texas method is a powerlifting and general strength program. You could also say that it's a Olympic lifting base building program as well, but it's generally a strength program. It's not ideal for hypertrophy. It's a strength program. All right. So if we crack on with what we've got, firstly, I just want to say this program is falsely attributed sometimes to Mark Rippetoe. This was not created by Rippetoe. Rippetoe may have used it. He may have promoted it, but it was not created by him. I think part of the confusion is the fact that Rippetoe is far much more of a prolific writer than the originator. Also, Rippetoe did do an article about the Texas method in 2013 where he discusses it, but he fails to mention the originator in the article. So the creator is actually Glenn Penley, the former head coach of the US Olympic lifting team who sadly passed in 2019. A fantastic coach, someone who I have a massive amount of respect for. Also, while we're on the note about Rippetoe and who he and what he's not done, this picture that is commonly attributed to being Mark Rippetoe on the left here is not. That is Roger Estep. So we see here a comparison. That is Estep on the left, and that is Rippetoe on the right. The hair is somewhat similar, but at similar sort of age ranges, they looked quite different. So this is Roger Estep on the left, not Mark Rippetoe. I don't know why that was somehow mistaken to be Rippetoe, but that is definitely Estep. Estep was a pretty famous bodybuilder from back in the day, very famous sort of bodybuilder, strength athlete hybrid. He was around about the same time that Bill Starr was. So yeah, I don't know why the confusion is there. In any case, in terms of the history of the routine, so Glenn Penley was coaching in Texas using methods which were inspired by the late, great Bill Starr. Bill Starr, for those of you who don't know, is one of the early originators of the entire 5x5 thing. Okay, Bill Starr has a couple of books that he's written, one called The Strongest Shall Survive. There's another one called Defying Gravity, which is a contest prep peaking book. I have them both. They're both amazing books. I have one of those copies, which is actually signed to me, which is really nice. But Bill Starr, if you haven't heard of Bill Starr, or you've only heard of him in passing, do yourself a favor and go and Google his name and check him out, because he is a prolific writer. He was also head of the US Olympic lifting team. He's responsible for much of the ideas that we know about strength and periodization. He was right there. He is the granddaddy. If you are interested in strength, you should familiarize yourself with Bill Starr, who he is and what he wrote. So Glenn was coaching in the early 2000s in Texas, and he was coaching his lifters on a 5x5 routine, very much inspired by the type of thing that Bill Starr would put to his clients and his lifters. Now, what Glenn found was that some of his guys were maxing on the Friday. So he had him on 3x5 or 5x5 3 times a week, but they were maxing on a Friday, before the weekend, get a bit of a buzz. And because they were maxing on a Friday, some of them were going easy on the Wednesday. So they were putting in a good training session on Monday, really hard training session for lots of volume, building that strength up real nice. Then on Wednesday, they were relaxing a little bit, ready for a max out on Friday. And so over the course of time, Glenn realized that a lot of these guys were not only getting good results by doing this, but also getting better results than what Glenn was putting forward, inspired from Bill Starr doing the 5x5 3 times a week. And so it took him a while, but eventually kind of come around to the way of thinking and thought, okay, well, if everyone's getting better results doing it this way, then perhaps we should just do it this way. So he formalized the routine. He was a really intelligent guy, very, very on the ball, as you would be, head of the Olympic weightlifting team. And so he formalized that into intensity days, volume days, et cetera, recovery days. And he created what we know as the Texas method. Now, it's a relatively complicated setup, so I'll just talk you through it. You have a volume day, a recovery day, and an intensity day. So you can see where it comes from. The volume day is what builds the strength every week. The recovery day it eases off a little bit for the intensity day where you go max. So the volume day consists of 5x5 on the squat, and also on the bench or overhead press. You rotate that session to session. And then you've got the deadlift for 1 set of 5. And on Wednesday, you do a recovery day. So the squat is only 2x5 and it's for less volume. So it's around about 80% of what you used on Monday. So if on Monday you use, say, 100 kilos, right? On Wednesday, you might only use 80. So if you use 220 pounds, you might only use about 180 pounds on Wednesday, and you only do it for 2 sets of 5. Then you do the overhead press or bench for 3x5. Again, you alternate it. Then you go with the chin up for 3 sets and a back extension or a glute ham raise for 5 sets of 10. So just some light work for the lower back hamstring area. So by the time it comes around to Friday, you should be nice and recovered. So then, boom, off you go. You go ahead and do your max out for a set of 5 on the squat, for a set of 5 on the bench, and then you power clean for some speed work. 5 triples or 6 doubles. That's basically the routine. And essentially the idea is it goes round and round. The volume on the Monday should drive the intensity on the Friday. Then the intensity on the Friday sets you up to do better work on the Monday because you're used to carrying a bit more weight on your back, a bit more weight on your legs. And so the cycle just goes round and round of never-ending strength, up and up and up and up. That's the idea. Okay. And as we know from the definitions of beginners and intermediates from my previous videos, an intermediate should be able to demonstrate some progress roughly like every month or prior to that. And so this is roughly a routine for about an intermediate. Okay. So that's generally what it is. Now, in terms of to understand how I would improve the routine, we have to look at the volume totals. So firstly, I just want to preface the final part with the volume totals. You're roughly looking at about 8 sets of squats per week. Okay. With a couple of those sets being lighter. And then you're looking at about 9 sets in total of pressing. So either bench pressing or overhead pressing. And in terms of deadlifting and clean and other variations like back extensions, you're looking at about 11 to 12 sets. Really only 1 set of deadlifts. And the rest are just filling in with volume on alternate lifts. Bill Starr was a massive fan of this. And I think I will cover Bill Starr's no deadlift program at some point in the future in a different video. So that's roughly what I would say are the volume totals. Now that's a decent amount of work. For the squat, you're looking at 6 to 8 sets of actual working sets, bench, overhead press, 9 sets split, and then deadlift and clean variations. Now, in terms of how I would go about improving this, to improve this routine, I would look at the volume totals. Now, there isn't actually a great deal structurally I would change. Like you've seen me talk about other programs and how I would sort of tear them apart, but there isn't a great deal I would change, and this is actually a very well put together routine. So I would just say to make changes to individualize the program to you as an individual, you should understand the volume totals and how to manipulate them for more gains. So if you're recovering very well, but you're just not gaining anything, then ramp up the volume. So you need more stress. Okay, so if you're recovered, you feel fine on all the volume totals, but you're just not getting stronger, then ramp up the volume. Do more volume, add a couple of sets. Now, to add that work in, you could just add in additional work on the day. Let's take squats, for example. You might add in some back off sets with a different exercise like pause squats. That's not a bad idea on your volume day. So that could add in a couple more sets per week. You might push the Wednesday workout a little bit harder as well. Might make them work sets rather than just recovery sets. So that's if you are recovering very well, but you're stagnating. You generally need more work. Next, if you are constantly just sore, and that's why you're not actually making any gains, then you might just need to increase your variety. So let's take the squat, for example. Let's say you're squatting 5x5 on a Monday, but you are just destroyed. Your knees, your back, everything hurts. In that case, you need more variety. All right. So consider adding more variety. So rather than doing 5 straight sets across of squats, do say 2 sets of squats and then do another couple of sets of variations. So perhaps do a pause squat, perhaps do a leg press, perhaps do something else, perhaps do a hack squat, perhaps do a belt squat. But the point is, you want to work a bit more variety into that volume if you're not recovering from the volume as it is. Then as a last resort, you could consider decreasing the volume, but I would always consider increasing the variety first. Notice how all these programs, which seem to not like the deadlift, all have a wide variety of other exercises they do for the back. Why is that? Because it increases recovery, right? So I always preach, actually, for people who are naturally good deadlifters, you probably just want to do the deadlift volume. So that's another thing I should say on this point. If your deadlift is particularly stagnating, then you might just need more deadlifting. Nothing wrong with doing more than one set of deadlifts per week. As I've said to you in my previous videos, some people who are built to deadlift, they actually do better with deadlift volume than they do with squat volume. I am one of those people. I can deadlift a ton of volume throughout the week. I can't do so much on squats. There you go. It's what you're built for. So that is how I would change the routine. So in summary, if you are stagnating, but you are recovering really well, ramp up the volume, okay? Or in the case of the deadlift, perhaps just ramp up the specificity a little bit. So do more of those 11 to 12 sets as deadlift sets. If you are stagnating and you're constantly sore, rather than just decrease the workload automatically, immediately, I would recommend increasing the variety first. So get your squat sets from different exercises, match it around, match some easier variations to take the load off your joints a little bit, and then see how you get on with that. Fundamentally, though, I will say this is a very well put together routine. I'm a massive fan of Glenn Penley. I have a huge amount of respect for him. He was an enormous guy, trained a lot of very good lifters. And yeah, I think this is a great routine. But I would just bear in mind those changes if you are going to run it and if you come into some problems. The actual basic setup is very, very sensible. But if you run into problems, that is how I would adjust it. So you can still do the Texas method, just vary it in those ways. And I like to think that if Glenn was coaching you, that is basically how he would change things. If he was there in person, no one would be doing the exact routine as it was. If you are being coached by Glenn or coached by myself, that is how we would adjust things to accommodate your individual preference. All right, folks, I'm going to call it there. If you would like to work out with me to improve your strength or physique, there is a link in the description below for you to get in touch. But aside from that, if you have got this far and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the like, give me some comments, let me know what you think. But overall, Texas Method, I'm a big fan. Glenn Penley, I'm a big fan. And this was not originated by Mark Ripito. And no, Mark doesn't look like that picture we saw in the deadlift bar. I'll leave you with that.